Hi, Guillermo. Welcome. Welcome to the Connected Generation. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Nikki.
Awesome. Can you just explain more about your story, how it is you've gotten to where you are now and why you're so passionate about family businesses and next generation?
Well, yes, it's as everything, it's a long story. I come from a family business. It was a family business that was devoted to construction, and the specialization of the family business was doing roads and bridges. And I think that,
Wow, that's like our family business as well, actually.
yeah, that was like a metaphor for what came after
Mm,
when I tried to specialize in helping family businesses to go through their ways and to the path that they build and making the connections that can create the relationship that lasts in families and
mm,
businesses. So my specialization was family relationship, and
mm,
I have a diploma in family therapy, and I've been working with the soft side of the family business consultancy for 20 years, more or less, and still have like a lot of energy to keep on going with this for a long time. So what I've been doing is helping families that are in transitions, helping the next generation to create the proper mood and conditions to create the valuable conversations that they should have in order to, you know, give the opportunity to the next generation to build their own future. And that's basically what we've been doing. With my team, I lead a group of consultants, and we are always searching for new ways of connecting the previous and the next generations. That is basically what we are trying to explain today. One of the ways we do it.
that's incredible. I love the fact that you said, your family's business was in construction, building bridges and roads, and that's the metaphor for what it is that you do now, really facilitating connection between generations in family businesses. So you have some ideas on how storytelling can play a prominent role in creating this bridge or road between the generations. Can you tell us why should we use more storytelling in our family businesses?
Yes, well, I think that everything is always connected with a metaphor. The way that we can create the construct of the models of our thinking, it's always related with some metaphor that we already know. I would like to start from the beginning. What really help us understand why do we need to tell stories? Why do we need to create a connection with the symbols of our story? And it all lead us to Africa. Everything is related.
Really?
Yeah, everything is related to
Yay.
the origin of the man.
Hmm.
So it was about 70,000 years ago that the Homo sapiens
Hmm.
created the capability of imagine things that they could not touch or smell or even see. So when they start when the Homo sapiens started to imagine things, it was the first great revolution of the human race. It was the cognitive revolution. There is a very interesting book of Yuval Harari. He talks about the three great revolutions in human history. The first one was in Africa. It was the cognitive revolution. It was when the man started to imagine things. So he could talk about things that didn't exist, and that lead them to create a common sense, to create larger groups of collaboration that they could use that collaboration to conquer the world, to look for more food, to create cities, to war, to everything that they needed to enlarge the power of the presence of the humankind in the world. So it all started there. So when we start to think about why is it important, uh, why do we need to create things like mythology to communicate ourselves? This is what it really means to belong. this is what it creates our identity. And the way that you start to go down in the scale of the communities, we will always find the main of our communities, which are our families. And our families have their own myths, their own legends, their own history. And the way that we use to create this common ground of identity in the family is through family history and storytelling.
That's so incredible. So storytelling, in its origins had a way to influence and to inspire and to really rally people towards a common cause. And there's this book I read a couple of years ago, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, and in it he says that storytelling is the most persuasive form of communication that we have. Both stories that we hear from other people and stories that we tell ourselves. And so that's really interesting. So, how can we infuse more storytelling in our family enterprises? So we have, founding generation that's now moving to the second generation. Even though quite often the next generation may have been alive when the business was started, um, the, they may not necessarily have color on the origins of the business, the why of the business. So how can we use more storytelling in our family enterprises?
Mhm. Well, that's a very interesting thing because basically, when we talk about history, we talk about the model of remembering things, and the things that we remember, its main components are the thing that we can recreate and the thing that we forget. So every time that we tell and retell an history, we are talking more about mythology of the family than the real facts of history. So one thing I've been working with every time that I work with a family is that we do a main exercise, which is recreate the history of the family. And we reunite all of the members of the family we can work with. Usually we work with families from second to third generation. So one of the main requirement for a myth to be well established in a family history is that you need at least 3 generations, because most of the histories are around the founder, and the founder becomes the myth. And when the third generation knows the myth, usually they can know their grandparent, grandmother, but they didn't live the life that they could be witnesses of those myths. So it creates the situation that's perfect for all of the mythology that creates the environment of this history of the family. So in second to third generation, third to fourth generation, we really have this enrichment of values and principles that created this particular person. And this person always answers to the same path of the myth of the hero. And as the book by Joseph Campbell, when he depicted all of the main characters, all of the plots of different cultures of the hero, and in every culture, uh, it's always possible to depict the same history of the hero with the three main parts of the path, which is the ordinary world, the special world, and the return of the hero. So when you recreate the history of the family around the myth of the founder, it will do exactly the same path of the hero, and everything matches. And it's all about how do we create the world that we live in because we have this myth, and how is it possible that we can belong to this history? Where is my role? Why do I I'm connected with this myth? So that's the way that we create that.
That's really fascinating. And, sometimes stories can be a source of inspiration. and sometimes they can be a source of intimidation.
Yes.
So how do you ensure that this myth in the family doesn't actually push the rising generation away
Mm.
and make them feel like I can never measure up to the myth of grandpa who started this business against all odds and turned water into wine. And here I am just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And so, how do we ensure that this story is really inspirational but not intimidating?
Yeah. Well, there is a secret for that. And the secret is that for a good storytelling, you need a good story listener. So every time that we recreate the story, we need good listeners. And why do I mean for good listeners? You need people that are able to do questions, because most of the story that they are listening is the official story. But every time that you start to dig in this information and do the right questions, you will find things that they were not told. They would the people that can do with, and you have to be very persuasive with this. You have to have compassion. You have to have the touch to connect with the essential of the story. And
Mm.
doing the right questions will let you know that not every myth is perfect, that the hero can make mistakes, and that every time that they make mistakes, it is a part of the history that the teller will decide if they will tell that part or not, depending on what they want to say. So yes, we have a methodology on which we can invite a real hero. We have one of our allies that collaborate with us, Albert Bosch. He is Iron Man. He's been climbing peaks all around the world. He went walking to the South Pole. He's incredible. He really is a hero. And when we invite him to do the speech to the family, especially to the next generation, the topic of the speech is, it is important to make mistakes, because every time that you make mistakes, you become the real hero. And
Oh,
that's the
I
most
love that.
important part of the history. Learn from your mistakes.
I so love that because I was going to ask a question about that. That is it possible that we almost mystify the founder, and there's a distinction between a myth and a story, and we can almost glamorize and place the founder on a pedestal and make he or she look like they were infallible, they never made mistakes, and like a standard that's completely unattainable for the rising generation. But I love that you really create and encourage vulnerability and encourage mistakes, because life is mistakes, isn't it? We learn by doing. We're all on a journey of mastery, either individually or collectively as our families and businesses, and we learn through a lot of our mistakes. So I absolutely love that you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's very important, because if you follow the path of the hero, if you follow the hero journey, you will find that there are stages in the path that are plenty of fear, are plenty of doubts, of mistakes. But every time that the hero faces and encourages his own destiny, he will find a way to overcome those mistakes. So this is very important, that you recreate the whole myth, all the stages of the myth, because you will find that mistakes are very important and very necessary if you really want to see the end of the road. So yes, making mistakes is a crucial thing in a history. You need to see the hero suffer. You need to see the hero falling down and rising again, and that really creates the hero.
That
So
is so true.
yeah, and what you say is true. I mean, we have had clients with next generations that are really uh, they are really scared of trying because they know that they are not perfect. They will not be the same man or woman that the families way expecting from them to be like this. And this is a very bad situation because the connection with the archetype, which is something very important for a human being. In the psyche of the human, you have the conscious and the unconscious, and everything that is in the unconscious is full of myth and archetypes. And the thing is that the messages that unconscious sends to the conscious part of your being, it's always telling you what you should do, but the conscious part is telling is it evaluates the risks and says yes or no. So if you don't know what is the real meaning of the hero in the family myth that you belong to, you will not connect with that archetype, and you will not let it go in the unconscious, in the part that you need to it to be. So as Carl Jung said, as far as you are not conscious of the unconsciousness of your soul, you will call it destiny.
Wow.
And once you are conscious of that, and you know exactly how the myth is and what is your role in this plot, then you do the click and you say, yes, now I know why I have to do what I have to do. And it really demythify the myth. And it
That's
works.
incredible. That's
It
incredible.
really works. It really works.
And
Yeah.
so the storytelling allows us to look back,
Yes.
right, to a skeptical, person, rising gen that hears this and it's like, okay, that's great. We're looking to the past, but how does that help us today with where we are, with managing the family dynamics and trying to ensure that we're pushing the business forward? What are the benefits really of building this myth and storytelling to actually move forward as a business and as a family?
Well, that's very important, Nikkei. It's very important. I mean, you cannot have a future if you don't know your past. If you want to create something from the present, you need to look for the roots of your values in the past. In fact, from a neurological point, the same part of the brain that creates the imagination of the future is the same part of the brain that creates the remembrance of the past. If you see someone who has had an accident, for example, a car crash accident, and the part of the brain is damaged, the part of that makes them to lose their memory. And these people doesn't remember anything about yesterday, for example. And you ask this person, what are you going to do tomorrow? They don't have an idea. They cannot create the future because they don't have information about their past. So it's exactly the same. The way that you can define a proposal of your family business is when you understand where do you come from and where are the bases of what you have to build, because that is exactly what will connect and will make sense to connect with the future and make it a real thing that you believe in, because this is part of your identity. So this is very important to know your past always.
That's incredible. And is this the importance of storytelling? Is it effective across all cultures, or is it found to be more effective in specific cultures?
No, well, all of my theory are based in most of the main studies that have been made in the 20th century around what is the psyche and the mythology of different cultures, especially what is based in the journey of the hero from the book of Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, he studied like, I don't know, 1,000 different cultures around the world, from Russia, Japan, India, Africa, America, Europe. And everything that he found always led him to the same answer. So my guess is that yes, the same power of storytelling through the same methodology of reveal the myth of the hero, in this case of family business, the myth of the founder, should work for every culture if we are based in the same principle. So yes, my guess is that it should work.
And is it something that we add on to? So, as each successive generation comes up, do they add to the story? How does it work? How does it become an inclusive story that's not just about this mythological figure that was the founder that we may not have met ever in our lifetimes, but we just keep looking back towards,
Yeah, well, every family needs myths. Every family needs rituals. Every family needs this identity with their past. And every family in every generation recreate the myth. Every family changes the myth according to what we are looking for, according to our values, according to our future. So every time that a new generation retells the story, they add and change things. They cannot destroy the myth because it's very hard to destroy a myth or to create from nothing a myth, but you can change the myth. And one thing about the hero is that the hero doesn't travel alone. Through the path that he goes through, he has allies, he has enemies. There are other archetypes that travels with him, and in order to have a whole idea of the path of the hero, you need more people to add their contribution to the story, and that's when it comes for the next generation. What is my contribution to this path? And usually, what we have is that we could have a first journey of a first hero, and then a second journey of a second hero that somehow they connect in the whole story. And this is the chance of you to become a hero. You can be a hero because, in theory, a hero is made from an ordinary person. That's a myth. When you come from your ordinary world and then you receive the call to the adventure, and it's valid to refuse the call. In fact, you should refuse the call, because when you receive the call of the adventure, what you're going to feel is fear, because the call is telling you, get out of your comfort zone, come to the adventure, come to the magical world, come to the risk. And usually you say, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. But somehow something happens that you accept the call, and then you go through the new world. You will have your allies, you will have your enemies, the traitors, the treasures, the ordeals, and one day you will find that you have the magically you are in a world when you really can create. And this is a very important part of your life, because you'll be very creative, and everything that you do is somehow connected with the process of a family business, for example, or could be writing, or could be having a podcast, anything that makes you a creative human being. So that's the part. But as always in every history, there is a turnaround, that is the return of the hero. Because for every hero to become a real hero, he must to return to the ordinary world. And that is what we connect with the family business history, with the retirement of the hero. Why do we need the hero to return? Because in somehow the hero that doesn't return becomes a tyrant, because
Wow.
he prefers to stay in his magical world with the power of the magical world, instead of going back to to the ordinary world and bring the justice, which is what a hero does. A hero that returns, he brings the magic to the ordinary world and he shares with the rest of the world. And
It's
every
so
time,
deep. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yes, and that's the most difficult part of the
Of
path.
course.
That's the most
And
difficult.
there's another theme that is recurring with a lot of these heroes is a lot of them have been male. And so how can we, what can we do to improve that conditioning and bias so that, like I said, the rising generation is inspired and not just think that's just for the men in the
Hmm.
family.
Well, we are talking about the myth. We are not talking about the character itself. We can have myth, males or females. And the most
Okay.
important thing is that this is changing, as I mentioned before, you can change the myth. The society changes the myth. If
Yes.
you look for, if you are looking for a catalog of classical heroes in classical Greek history, or you will see that there are not so many female heroes. But right now, you have a lot of female heroes, a lot. I am not talking only about comic hero, superheroes. We are talking about the real female heroes that we see everywhere in the world. So the myth is changing in the way that you can see that the female myth also recreates the same path of the hero, exactly the same stages. And you don't have to be attached to a gender thing to have a hero. You can have a female hero perfectly.
It's incredible. So if, um, there's someone listening and really is inspired by this and wants to take steps to infuse more storytelling in their family enterprises, do you have any tips for them? How can they actually do this?
Yes, well, my first advice should be try to find someone who helped you to recreate the history. If especially if this person have any training to lead families, because the best way that a family can get advantage of this is having some neutrality of someone who can collect the information and present it to the family in a way that you will have harmony. You will let the people doing the questions. You in somehow you someone who has the responsibility to collect the information and present it to the family in a way that could be uh, something of creativity for the family. So my best advice is try to find someone who can help it to you. And the other thing is you have to be very generous and open your heart to listen, because as I have mentioned before, it's not only telling the history, it's listening to the story, connecting with the feelings, and understanding that the different decision makers in every story has a value that they lean on, and that value is the one that they are giving to you as part of the legacy of the history. This is the
Wow.
moral of the history.
Wow.
So you have to listen to the story.
Wow. Wow. That's been incredible. Thank you so much, Guillermo. If anyone wants to reach you, how best can they get in touch with you?
You can visit my webpage, which is Exaudi Online, EXAUDI online.com. And we are more than glad to receive your visit.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki.